more. And but around that time, we were trying to transition into what we wanted to do as a...
There are moments in the story of basketball where rivalry doesn't just ignite the game, it defines it. It burns beneath the surface of every handshake, every cold stare, every collision on the hardwood. For Kevin Durant, a man shaped by ambition and shadowed by criticism, those rivalries were more than competition. They were personal wars. Wars fought not just for victory, but for legacy. For nearly 2 decades, Durant's name has lived in both light and fire, praised as a basketball genius, yet hunted as a villain. He has been adored, mocked, doubted, and feared. But behind the calm tone, behind the long strides and smooth jump shot, there lived a fire that refused to be dimmed. And that fire burned brightest when he stood across from certain men who tested his patience, his pride, and his very identity. At 37, after a lifetime in the spotlight, Kevin Durant finally opened up. Not about titles, not about legacy, but about emotion, about hate. The kind that is born not from jealousy, but from pain, from conflict, from wounds the game itself carved into him. Number 1. Russell Westbrook. There are few stories in modern basketball as Shakespearean as the one between Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. They began as brothers, 2 young stars in Oklahoma City, rising together under the same storm. Westbrook, the thunderbolt; Durant, the calm before it. For years, they carried the hopes of an entire city. One a relentless engine, the other an artist with a basketball. Together, they built something magical. But magic often dies not with a scream, but with silence. In 2016, the silence broke. Kevin Durant left the Thunder. He left Westbrook. And in that moment, friendship became fire. The league turned cold. Headlines called him a traitor. Jerseys were burned. And for Russell Westbrook, it wasn't just betrayal, it was personal. When they met again on the court, it wasn't a game. It was a storm reborn. Cameras caught every glare, every smirk, every missed handshake. When Westbrook barked across the floor, Durant didn't respond. But his eyes did. They told a story of hurt, of pride, of 2 men who loved the same dream but could no longer share it. Durant would later call those moments necessary. Necessary to grow, to change, to find peace. But the truth is, some rivalries never heal, they only evolve. For Durant, Westbrook was a mirror. A reflection of what he once was: loyal, emotional, unfiltered. The very things Durant tried to rise above. And yet, deep down, he hated Westbrook not for the anger, but for the reminder. The reminder that in chasing greatness, he had left behind a piece of his soul. Number 2. Draymond Green. If Westbrook was the ghost of Durant's past, Draymond was the storm of his present. Their story began with triumph, a dynasty born in gold. When Durant joined the Golden State Warriors, he was stepping into basketball royalty. He became the weapon they never needed, but always feared to face. Together, they dominated the league. Championships came. Records fell. And yet, beneath the smiles and champagne, tension brewed. Draymond Green, the heart of the Warriors, was never one to hide his thoughts. He was the voice, the fire, the fury. Durant was the precision, the silence, the execution. For a time, they balanced each other. But balance rarely lasts in dynasties built on ego. In 2018, it all shattered. Late in a game against the Clippers, with seconds ticking away, Draymond grabbed a rebound, ignored Durant's call, and lost the ball. They argued. Words were exchanged. But what Draymond said that night would echo across the league. "We don't need you." Those words sliced through the silence like a knife. It wasn't just an insult, it was an earthquake. For Durant, it exposed the truth he'd always feared, that no matter how many titles he won, he'd never belong. Not truly. Not to them. He left Golden State the following year, but the wound remained. In interviews, he'd later say he and Draymond had moved on, that it was just part of the game. But even as he spoke, there was a weight in his voice, a trace of something unsaid. Because Durant didn't just hate Draymond for the words. He hated him for making him question everything he'd achieved. For years, Durant's name had carried whispers of joining a 73-win team, of taking the easy route. Draymond's outburst made those whispers roar. And though time would soften the edges, that night marked a turning point. It was the night Kevin Durant stopped being a warrior and became, once again, a lone soldier. Number 3. LeBron James. Some rivalries are born of conflict. Others are born of legacy. For Kevin Durant and LeBron James, it was both. From the moment Durant entered the league, LeBron stood above him, a towering presence, both literally and symbolically. The king, the chosen one. Every step Durant took, every point he scored, every MVP he won, LeBron's shadow loomed behind it. They were opposites in every way. LeBron, the prodigy who fulfilled prophecy. Durant, the quiet assassin who was never quite enough. For years, Durant chased him, not in words, but in purpose. Each time they met in the finals, it was more than a game. It was a battle for identity. When Durant joined Golden State and finally beat LeBron in back-to-back finals, he thought he had done it. He thought he had finally silenced the noise, dethroned the king, proven his worth. But instead, the whispers grew louder. He needed Steph. He needed Clay. He needed help. Even in victory, he couldn't escape comparison. And that is where hate was born. Not the kind that burns outward, but the kind that burns within. Durant never said it directly, but his eyes, his interviews, his tone, all revealed the truth. He didn't hate LeBron the man. He hated the pedestal, the myth, the way the world seemed to bend around him. Durant once said in a podcast that the media created a toxic environment around LeBron, that it became impossible to just play. But deep down, there was something more. A silent resentment that no matter what Durant did, it would always be seen through the lens of LeBron James. And yet, it was that very rivalry that made him great. Because in chasing LeBron, Durant became something else entirely. Not a king, not a prince, but a warrior. One who fought not for approval, but for truth. As he stood years later, older, wiser, his body marked by miles and moments, Durant finally understood what hate really was. It wasn't bitterness. It was memory. The scars of battles fought in the name of love for the game. For Westbrook, the hate was personal. For Draymond, it was philosophical. For LeBron, it was existential. Each one represented a different chapter of his story. A story of a man who sought not perfection, but purpose.